On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, the redesigned Model Y, aka Project Juniper, has been revealed by Tesla China. I'll tell you about what's new, my thoughts on the design, and when it's launching in China. Plus, Tesla is the most searched for car brand in America. Every Tesla will soon get an AI chatbot, and more. What's happening, friends? Welcome to Ride the Lightning. It is your weekly Tesla unofficial podcast. It's January 12th, 2025 as I publish this, January 10th in the evening as I record. Welcome to episode 493. To my left, Daisy the Boxer. She is hanging out on the couch, all chilled out after her walk. And behind me, a little bored, if I'm honest. She's looking pretty bored. Mina, the future service dog. I am anything but bored. This is going to be a huge episode of the podcast. You already know what I'm going to talk about. But before I do, I wanted to take a quick moment and just send out a heartfelt bit of love, just my thoughts and prayers to everyone affected in the Los Angeles area. Any of you listeners out there, Tesla employees, like I know Franz and the design team all live down there, and everybody else that have been affected either directly or indirectly by these absolutely horrific wildfires that have devastated parts of Los Angeles this week. So hopefully it's all going to get contained very soon. I know today, Friday, as I'm recording, it seemed like the winds had died down and it gave firefighters and first responders a better chance to start to contain this thing. So all my best to everybody affected by this. And let's talk Tesla. I mean, if you want to take your mind off of it or just want to dive in, there is a huge story this week. One of the biggest ones we'll get of the year. I guarantee this is, we were expecting it, right? It's not completely unexpected. Maybe the timing is slightly unexpected that it's this soon in January, but not really necessarily. We knew it was getting pretty close. The sightings of the covered up test mules had been getting more frequent, and it is official now. The new Model Y has been revealed, and the story of how this came about is, I can't say definitively that this is how it happened, but I'll just lay out the timeline for you. So, on Thursday morning, there were spy shots posted to social media that, of course, quickly spread around all over the place of the new Model Y uncovered doing snow testing, or maybe it was a promotional video or photo shoot of some kind, because it was tearing through the snow with its wheels turned and snow kicking up. And it was a Quicksilver, or maybe from the picture, it looked Quicksilver in the picture, though it was a far away picture, right? It's a spy shot. But you could definitely tell this was a real picture, and this was the new Model Y. And part of the reason that you could tell it was a real picture is because, as you know, the sightings of them so far have been with the front completely covered up with like a black nose bra and then another one on the rear of the car. Well, this uncovered one that was photographed had the Velcro tabs on the edges of where that bra would mount, would stick to. So this was definitely real. I was not doubting the validity of it at all. And then, perhaps not coincidentally, later that day, Tesla China flipped the switch and it was officially on their website and it was real and it was formally announced. And again, perhaps not a coincidence that Tesla went ahead and flipped the switch after the reveal was spoiled by these spy shots. That stuff happens on occasion in the video game industry, in my world, sometimes, where something leaks ahead of the embargoed reveal or the planned day that it was going to get revealed. So in order to combat misinformation or confusion, the company just decides to go ahead and pull the reveal forward and make it official and go out with the official announcement. So anyway, the new Model Y will debut in China first, just like the Highland, the redesigned Model 3, the 3 Fresh, if you will, and it is still TBD on when it's going to arrive here in North America, or in Europe for that matter. Before I go any further, though, because I obviously have many, many thoughts on the new Model Y, there's plenty to talk about. If you want to see it, if you haven't seen pictures of it yet, yes, you could Google it, but I also have pictures up on my Patreon page, and you don't need to be a Patreon backer to see those pictures. Just go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Tesla podcast, where I had put up a last-minute emergency second Patreon poll for this week. I'd already had one up at the regular time earlier in the week. Put up a second poll to ask all of you what you thought, what your first impressions of the redesign were. I will get to the results of that poll in a bit, but there are 5 pictures that I've posted from various angles, all official pictures from Tesla that you can look at, or just Google it, whatever's easier for you. So I want to talk through my impressions of everything first, and then I'll give you those poll results on what you guys thought. So, one of the biggest questions is, of course, not even what it looks like, but when. When is this thing coming? So, the first deliveries in China will be in March, and those will be a slightly more expensive launch series that includes unique badging, and as also the 2-year, 40,000 kilometer extended warranty, as well as acceleration boost on the long-range variant, the long-range dual-motor variant, I should specify on that. And so that's not too far away, a couple months from now. And again, that leads me to wonder, did they quite plan to reveal it this soon, if now it's going to be a 2-month wait just until it starts delivering in China? And as for when it will follow suit in Europe from Giga Berlin, and in North America from Giga Texas and the Fremont factory, your guess is as good as mine, but as I've said before, I think it's going to have to follow fairly quickly in North America and in Europe, lest the sales of the, I guess now I have to just, with air quotes, call it the old Model Y, get Osborne, right? They suffer from the Osborne effect. In fact, I imagine that even as I sit here on Friday night, about just a little over 24 hours after Tesla made the reveal official, let alone when you're hearing this on Sunday or sometime during the week, that Tesla can already see their daily orders tracking downward, week over week or month over month or year over year. The sales have to be affected right now. I will tell you that today I went in for a little heart scan. Short version, I have a family history that I've just learned about of very, very high cholesterol, just as a genetic thing, because I keep myself fairly fit, so it wasn't like a concern in that regard. But anyway, so I go in for this heart scan, and the technician that was helping me somehow, I was wearing red sneakers, and he was like, "Oh, I have a red Tesla." I was like, "Oh, really? I do too." Anyway, the technician, for all I know, maybe he's a listener of this podcast and he's just as hardcore as any of us, but he knew about this reveal yesterday. He knew about the new Model Y. So word has gotten around. That's my point in that, sorry, that long-winded story about my personal health. Everything's fine, by the way. I actually just got the results before I started recording this, and everything looked good. So that is exactly what I wanted to hear. But the fact is, this word is getting around very, very quickly about the new Model Y, regardless of whether you're an enthusiast like we are or not. I mean, anybody that searches for new model for just Model Y, not even new, right? Because you'd have to know to put in new. Like, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to just search Tesla Model Y. And when I type that in, the first thing that comes up on Google is Tesla North America, Tesla US's website. So, okay, that shows the old Tesla. Except in the fourth box. Nope, there's the new one. And then the top stories box right below is pictures of the new one and all stories about, here's Tesla officially unveils the 2025 Model Y, Tesla Model Y Juniper, all this stuff. So if you search Model Y, you're going to find out about this, and that's where I figure that Tesla's sales in the US and Europe must already be trending downwards, which is certainly not what Tesla wants. But that's going to be offset, that dip will be offset by what I am sure is going to be a massive surge of orders that Tesla's going to get whenever they do flip the switch and make it available in North America and in Europe. But obviously only Tesla has that data to know for sure. I'm just using some best guess logic on this, but that's all that is to say. I think it's going to have to follow quicker than the new Model 3 came to North America, because I went and looked this up just to verify my memory on this. So for historical context, the new Model 3 was officially revealed in China on September 1st, 2023, and then it wasn't available in North America until January 10th of 2024, which coincidentally is exactly 1 year ago today as I record this. And so it was 364 days later that the Model Y was announced. So anyway, that doesn't really matter. But a full 4 months is the point. A full 4 months later between when the 3 Fresh was revealed and when it was available in North America. And I just can't imagine it's going to be that long of a gap for the Model Y, because it's Tesla's big moneymaker. It is the car, the number one selling new car in the world. It just seems like 4 months is going to be way, way too long. But we'll just have to see now if this is going to be a staggered rollout where China's announced it first, and then Berlin will start making it for Europe, and then Fremont and Texas start making it for North America, or if those other 3 factories are going to follow Giga Shanghai fairly quickly. My guess is it's going to be the latter. It's going to follow pretty quickly. It wouldn't even surprise me if, well, let's just say it might be very soon. I don't actually know anything, but it just seems bad for business to have your number one seller be refreshed with that information freely available to anyone on the internet, and have that vehicle not be available in 2 of your biggest markets, meaning North America and China. Now, about the design. So again, if you have not looked at this car yet, I encourage you to either just Google image search it, or as Mina gets busy with a squeak toy behind me, of course, which I may have to take away from her momentarily. So either take a look on Google or on my Patreon page so that you can get a look at what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to be honest with all of you. My first impression, because I reserve the right to evolve that opinion. I certainly did. Okay, hold on. I got to take this. I'm sorry, pups. I got to take that. We can't have the squeak toy in the middle of the podcast. It will drive away all of my listeners, as adorable as you are. They can't see how adorable you are. I certainly changed my opinion on the Cybertruck, right? I mean, that's a very different animal. It was polarizing intentionally. It was polarizing on purpose. And I absolutely, I'll say it, I hated the Cybertruck at first. And then I completely flipped around to a 180, and I love it now. The new Model Y, at my initial impression, I don't love it. Especially the back. The rear of it, I'm really not feeling. So both the front and the rear have light bars. Up front, it is a thin white one that's definitely has a family resemblance to the Cybercab, which means, by the way, there are now 3 Teslas, granted one of them isn't in production yet, the Cybercab, but of the, which, okay, if we're going to play the announced but not yet manufactured vehicle game, we have to include the next gen Roadster in this. Not that it really matters, but that's now 3 vehicles in the overall Tesla lineup of cars that are made and not yet made that have front light bars. Cybertruck, new Model Y, and Cybercab. So that seems to be a bit of design language that is starting to permeate Tesla's designs. Franz and the design teams design work. But again, I'm not loving the whole thing up front. So that thin white light bar up front, the wider red one in the rear, which, by the way, in the back, it's like a, for lack of a better term, thicker, like a wider light. Tesla describes it as this, quote, "Our single cross-car lamp is the first indirect reflective body panel taillight of its kind," which suggests to me that, so clearly there's some fun, like, reflective property going on from how that light is sort of perceived by when you're people looking at the car. And so I think that's, even though I say I don't like the rear of it, I think this indirect reflective body panel taillight is going to be something that doesn't come across in photos or in the renders. Because on the design studio, those are renders. And then on the Model Y page on the Tesla China site, those are actual photographs. So I think that rear light bar is going to be something that probably looks pretty cool in real life that I'm just not really feeling in the pictures and in the renders. By the way, the photo of it that I talked about on this podcast from a couple months ago, when somebody took a picture and put it online of pulling up the rear black bra covering and taking a picture of it and posting that online, like, that was real, which it certainly seemed to be at the time. That was real. And also, that rear light bar it has the TESLA word mark badge, just like actually all the Teslas, other than the Cybertruck, which has no badge at all. But the 4 painted cars all use the word mark badge on the rear now. And the word mark badge looks like it's integrated into that rear light bar assembly, which thereby simplifies the manufacturing process for Tesla even more, right? It's actually 5 parts that they don't have to stick on. It'll just all go on as one assembly. Therefore, I was going to say thereby and therefore, and they blended into one weird word, but therefore simplifying the manufacturing process of the car even more, which we know Tesla is on a never-ending quest to add more and more efficiency to the process. I will say, I showed the pictures of the new Model Y to my wife, who's absolutely not a car person, as all of you know. She likes the front. And then when I showed her the back, she was like, yeah, it doesn't do anything for me. She didn't dislike it or like it, but she did like the front. And because a crossover SUV like this needs to appeal to non-car people like her and not just enthusiasts like me, maybe that's a win for Tesla. I mean, the fact is, this car, it is the number one selling car in the world, and for Tesla, they want it to continue to be the number one selling car in the world. So they're not going to want to, they probably didn't want to go too crazy on this refresh, which I would argue, and I think most people would agree, that they didn't go too crazy on it. It is certainly an evolution. It is a modernization of the new design, or of the old design, pardon me. And one thing I will say, though, that I absolutely do love about the new Model Y is that I love that it's now very distinct from the new Model 3. Because the Y is so successful, we all know this, the Y is so successful, it almost literally can't be more successful, at least in the terms of, it's already the number one selling car in the world. But the Y is so successful that Tesla in 2025 can get the best prices and the best volume discounts from suppliers lining up around the block, tier 1 suppliers that want to work with them, even if those parts like headlights and taillights aren't shared with the new Model 3 anymore. I mean, Tesla did it that way on the original Model Y because they needed to keep it simple and to overlap those parts to keep costs down. Tesla is in a very different position 5 years later, where they have the number one selling new car in the world. So they are in an enviable position. So they have the luxury now of not needing to overlap on the headlights and the taillights in order to save a couple pennies on the volume orders from their suppliers, because they make enough Model 3s every year, and they definitely make enough Model Ys every year to still get the best prices possible from suppliers who are lined up around the block wanting to work with them now, which may not have quite necessarily been the case 5 years ago, back in 2019, when they weren't even profitable in 2019 when the Model Y was first unveiled. I mean, I know it went into production in 2020, but yeah, things have changed is the point here. And so I would say now that the 3 and the Y are more like, in terms of the relationship to each other, they're more like the S and the X now, in that the 3 and the Y do share pretty much the same interior, aside from the new Model Y does have slightly different door panels compared to the new Model 3. But other than that, it's almost the exact same interior. So yes, the same new ventilated seats, the second row screen for the rear passengers that's on the back of the center console. But on the outside of the cars, the 3 and the Y, like the S and the X, are very, very different. Now, granted, S and X actually have nothing in common on the outside of the cars, not even the door handles, right? Whereas Juniper and Highland do still share pretty much the same doors and definitely identical door handles. But the front and the rear now are completely 100% unique to each car. You will not confuse a 3 and a Y on the road from now on. And I think that's an awesome, awesome thing. I'm really happy that the Model Y now gets to have its own identity rather than just being a slightly taller Model 3 with a hatchback on it. Next thing I want to talk about is that the renders on the Tesla China website show a front bumper camera down in the grille, a la the Cybertruck. Now, I pause here because some of you, I don't want you, before you get your hopes up, you might go, well, wait a minute. That was also the case with the initial renders on the 3 Fresh. So will the new Model Y actually deliver with that extra camera or not? And the good news I can report to you is that it would appear that the answer is yes, it will ship with the front bumper camera. Now, take that with a bit of a grain of salt. We won't know for sure until we see physical units in customers' hands. But the answer appears to be yes, as X user, and I presume Ride the Lightning listener because he follows me on X, Trevor Scott, found on either the Tesla China site or the Tesla Australia site, because that went up too with the new Model Y, since Giga Shanghai supplies vehicles to Australia and New Zealand. So Trevor Scott found on the Tesla website a feature listing for the front view camera that says, front view camera, provide a wider field of vision for automatic assisted driving and advanced intelligent summoning. Which, if it's correct, now I saw some healthy skepticism on this online, and I say healthy because, again, we saw the 3 Fresh come out of the gate with its renders showing a front bumper camera that did not end up materializing in production. So some folks online thought that description might apply to the autopilot cameras because it's specifically talking about assisted driving and advanced intelligent summoning, except for the part where it does mention the auto washing, the fact that you can press the button like the Cybertruck to activate the spray nozzle to clean, to wash that front bumper camera. So it looks like the front bumper camera is going to happen on the 3 Fresh. On the Project Juniper, on the new Model Y, which immediately makes me feel some pain as someone who just bought a brand new Model 3 Performance that does not have this front bumper camera on it. Now, the more I thought about this front bumper camera thing, the more I came to the following conclusion. Bear with me just take a walk with me here for a minute. So, all of the cars that Tesla makes are now on AI 4, Autopilot Hardware 4. So, that is something that's uniform across the 5 vehicles. But to me, it doesn't make any sense for the Cybertruck and the Y to be the only 2 of the 5 cars with a front bumper camera. Now, the Cybertruck, sure, if that were the only one to have it, which it was for the last year, if the Cybertruck were the only one to have that front bumper camera, okay, it made some sense, right? It's a gigantic truck with a weird short front end that you can't see when you're sitting in it because the dashboard in front of you goes on for miles. So it's sort of a weird not the weird seating position, but the visibility is a little unusual, and having that front bumper camera is so helpful in helping you see where the truck is and where it's going to go when you steer it. But I just don't think it makes sense for the Cybertruck and the Y to be the only 2, because for the Y to have a front bumper camera, and for the X, and for that matter, the Model S, because the Model S has a very long hood, so for the X and for the S to not have a front bumper camera, particularly when the X and S are supposed to be the premium vehicles in the Tesla lineup, it just doesn't add up to me. And so, mark my words, and I know I kind of covered this a little bit on the prediction show a couple weeks ago, but mark my words, something is going to happen with the Model X and the Model X, and soon. And I'm saying that purely out of speculation. I don't have any sources. I don't know anything. But it just, as somebody that, if I may be so bold as to call myself a Tesla historian, because I think at least doing this podcast every week, maybe you'd give me that. Maybe you'd roll your eyes. But as somebody that follows this stuff really closely and has done so for almost a decade now, it just doesn't add up to me. So whether it's a major redesign of the S and X, like I suggested on my prediction show, where they could add in 48-volt architecture and steer-by-wire and interior ambient lighting and just all kinds of extra stuff, 800-volt architecture to go with the 48-volt, it just seems like something has to happen fairly soon with S and X, whether it's a major redesign or even something so bold as I floated the possibility of on the prediction show of sunsetting those cars, of killing them altogether. Which again, I don't want that to happen, but I have to acknowledge that it would be on brand. It would be in Tesla's MO to do that, given their larger goals here. But I just think something has to give on Tesla's 2 supposedly flagship vehicles. And I do think it's going to be sooner rather than later. I can maybe understand the Model 3, the new Model 3, not having a front bumper camera since it's a smaller car. But ultimately, I think we are heading for all the cars having that front bumper camera, particularly since that description from Tesla on the new Model Y suggested that FSD will utilize it. So with AI 5 coming up down the road, it just seems like Tesla would want to unify that so that it would make the FSD team's lives a lot easier as they continue their march towards full autonomy. But we'll see what happens. And again, if I'm right and that all the cars are going to have front bumper cameras before too long, that again would sting. That would be quite a stinger right in my eye as somebody that just bought a brand new Tesla. But So it goes with Tesla. This is how it is. You know that going in, that things can change at any time. I got a great deal on exactly the car, exactly the configuration I wanted. So I can't complain too much, but yes, if the Model 3s get front bumper cameras along with S and X and the new Y in the next few months, it's gonna sting a little bit, as I'm sure it will for some of you as well. Okay, while I'm talking about the front, interestingly, if you've looked at the pictures of it, the new Model Y has the air inlets on the sides of the front fascia that the old 3 and Y did, and that my new car, the new Model 3 Performance, has, but that the non-performance Model 3s do not. So it leads me to wonder, will the Performance Model Y that has not been revealed yet, will that Performance Model Y still get a unique splitter up front and a unique diffuser in the back, along with inevitably the bigger red brake calipers and the rear carbon fiber spoiler? So yeah, will they do anything special with that front splitter, that front fascia specifically? I think probably is the answer to that, but I guess we'll find out in probably 3 to 6 months. It's going to be a little bit probably before that Performance Y is reintroduced. So next up on Juniper, maybe the most exciting thing, I had a lot of you comment to me about this because I had brought this up very recently. I am thrilled to tell you that we have got a new paint color, and not just any new paint color, it's a new blue, exactly as I'd been calling for. It is a lighter blue, an ice blue, if you will, fittingly called Glacier Blue. And while I fully recognize that paint color is very, very subjective, to me, Glacier Blue looks great, and I imagine it will probably look even better in person. I couldn't help but crack a smile at this because, as you all know, I had just on this podcast been calling for a new blue specifically because, as I'd mentioned, they'd refreshed the gray, they'd refreshed the red, they'd brought back silver in a sense with Quicksilver, and the blue had been around for going on 10 years now. So the question is, will Glacier Blue be replacing Deep Blue Metallic or be offered alongside it? And I imagine it's going to be replacing it, which would mean, if that happens, that even if it's not right away, history says that eventually Model S, Model X, and Model 3 will get Glacier Blue as well. And it does appear that, at least for the Model Y, at least for now, Glacier Blue is going to be a replacement blue, not a second blue option, because I went on the Tesla China Design Studio, and even though I couldn't read anything, I certainly know how to... I've seen the Design Studio enough where I could scroll down and see the five color choices, and those color choices are Stealth Gray, Ultra Red, Pearl White, Quicksilver, and Glacier Blue. And if you're thinking, wait, aren't you missing one? You'd be correct. As of this recording, solid black, just classic good old black paint, is not available on the new Model Y. So is Tesla going to kill off solid black? And are they going to do it worldwide for all the cars? And I have no answer on that yet. I have to say TBD there, because I checked, and on Tesla China's website, so just staying on the Tesla China site, I went over to the Model 3 Design Studio on the Tesla China site, and you can still order the new Model 3 in solid black from there. It's just not available on the new Y, at least as of now. So stay tuned on that one. A promotional video on the Tesla China website confirms, by the way, that the second row of seats in the new Y will go down and come back up automatically with the touch of a button. So yes, they are powered now. So that button located inside the hatch, like in the rear of the car, right near the hatch, or no doubt you'll be able to do this from the front center screen or the Tesla app as well. So that is a really nice quality of life feature that is probably overdue, if we're being honest. Like a lot of other crossovers and SUVs have that functionality where you can lift up the rear hatch, the rear lift gate, and there's a button right there that will flip the seats down automatically and also bring them back up as well. So super nice to see the Model Y incorporate that. That is a distinctive, definitive upgrade over the old Model Y. Here's something else that I think will make quite a lot of you happy. And this one stunned me. That is not hyperbole. I would not have bet on this at all. I would have bet the opposite and I would have lost a ton of money. But it's good news. The new Model Y has one stalk, not two, just one, but it has a stalk on the steering column. So there's no gear selector stalk. You will be using the touchscreen to shift into park, reverse, drive, neutral. But there is a turn signal stalk on the left side. It is there. So this is huge. And as I said, to me at least, a shocking decision. It's a good one. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not trying to say, oh my gosh, what are they doing? No, the opposite. I salute Tesla for doing this because it's not worth potentially alienating customers over this. It's just not. And we've seen that the deletion of the stalks, first in the S and the X, and then in the new Model 3, has been very divisive. It has caused a lot of consternation, and understandably so. I am not disputing it. So Tesla has kept one stalk for the turn signal. And I will say, this is not the first time that we've seen Tesla walk back one of their minimalist decisions before. Remember, back when the new Model S and Model X first debuted, you had no choice. You were getting a steering yoke with that vehicle for quite a while until, well, you didn't have to get it anymore. And it became simply a choice of yoke or wheel, and then it became wheel by default, and if you wanted the yoke, you had to pay extra for it, and that's where it is today. The yoke is a $1,000 option on the S and X, and the round steering wheel comes on it by default. So clearly Tesla did not want to risk rocking the boat too hard with their big moneymaker. And something that I can't see and you can't see is data. And I have to think, and again, I admit this is speculation here, but I have to figure that Tesla has enough data from sales of the new Model 3. And the reason that I'm calling out the 3 specifically and not the S and the X that have been around and been stalkless for longer is that the Model 3 is in much higher volume than S and the X. So you're going to get just more data on that car. And I have to wonder, well, might Model 3 sales be down since the refresh? And I'm not saying they are. I'm just asking the question out loud. And we can't really tell. Not only does Tesla they don't give us individual vehicle sales. They don't tell us Model Y sales and Model 3 sales separately. They lump 3 and the Y in together. But not only that, sales, if they were down in 2024, and they probably were, it could have just been because they were ramping up the new one in North America. It also could be both. And again, we just can't see that in the data, in the public data that we have. But Tesla has that data, so Tesla knows if the take rate on the new Model 3 is every bit as good as it was on the old Model 3 or if it is lower. My guess is that it probably pained CEO Elon Musk to add a part back in that had been deleted on all of the other cars, but I suspect he got talked into it by other folks higher up at the company, people like Franz von Holzhausen, possibly the CFO. Like, I just have to imagine that enough people had Elon's ear and said, look, we can't mess around with the Model Y. We can't risk losing sales to anybody just because of the buttons on the steering wheel, because it's alien to pretty much everybody, right? We've all, the entire time we've been driving in our adult lives, we've had stalks. And I'm not saying that buttons are objectively worse. I mean, I've given my opinion there, and that is I haven't spent enough time with my new car yet to really weigh in, but I have spent a ton of time with the Cybertruck, and I think it totally works on the Cybertruck, specifically because of steer-by-wire, where it's only 170 degrees lock to lock, and you never do hand over hand on a Cybertruck. Thus, you never have to take your hands off the squircle, and so you do easily have those turn signal buttons in easy reach at any given time, no matter what kind of turn you're making. That's not the case on the S, X, 3, or Y. You do have hand-over-hand turns in those vehicles. So I suspect Elon wanted to delete the part, as he'd already done on the other the other four cars, but probably got talked out of it. And I do think it's the right decision. I honestly do. I really do think that it's the right decision. In fact, it's maybe not even just my own speculation, because Tesla even alludes to this being a feedback-based decision again, if you go poke around the Tesla Australia Model Y page, it's in their materials. Tesla says, quote, "The new Model Y provides effortless control with a precision-engineered indicator stalk thoughtfully refined based on valuable customer feedback." So they're trying to make it sound like, well, we've made the stalk better from your feedback, but I think the feedback was, we want the stalks, do not delete them, please. And I think Tesla heard that loud and clear. So you might be wondering, well, hang on, if there aren't turn signal buttons on the steering wheel, what is Tesla using that space for, those two buttons for instead? And it turns out they have left that up to you. Here's what Tesla says, quote, "We've improved ergonomics and usability by introducing customizable steering wheel switches, allowing quick and intuitive operation of the most frequently used vehicle functions to better meet drivers' needs," end quote. In other words, these are macro buttons. So presumably you could bind these to any number of things that you prefer, things like the seat heaters, the seat ventilation, the seat cooling, front or rear defrosters, etc., and just have that right at your fingertips on the steering wheel rather than having to go activate that functionality on the touchscreen. So have fun with that for those of you that are going to get the new Model Y. And then finally, I know I've been talking for 40 minutes here on the new Model Y, but hey, this is, again, huge moment in Tesla history, huge moment in Tesla's 2025, and we're only on the second episode of the year here. The final thing I want to talk about are wheels. So the base 19-inch wheels on the new Model Y, they are black, and they are an aero design that's similar in aero, similar to the Model 3's 18-inch aero wheel, similar to the Model S's 19-inch Tempest wheel. And I have to say, these new black 19-inch Aero wheels, I like them a lot. I think they look fantastic. And as those of you that have been listening for a while know, I'm pretty hard to please when it comes to Aero wheel designs. They tend to be more function over form, and I am someone that values form over function when it comes to wheel designs. Case in point, I just ripped the Aero inserts out of my new Model 3 Performances wheels to let those big, beautiful red brake performance calipers see some sun. Now, note that I'm very much exaggerating when I use the word rip. The actual description is Jeff at Immaculate Reflections had to go through, I won't call it hell on earth, but the poor guy suffered to remove those Aero inserts, all of them, because there are a number of them in each wheel, out of all the wheels without scratching the wheels. Because the way on the Performance 3, the way that those Aero inserts are in there, they're really in there in a way that so that they don't pop out while you're driving. And apparently, thankfully, I learned this before I got the car so that I could properly brief Jeff on this. It's very difficult to get them out without scratching your wheel on the way out. But Jeff, with some help from Colton from Out of Spec Detailing, Jeff evolved the procedure that Colton used and was able to get all of my Aero inserts out of my wheels without any damage to the wheels themselves. So I am very, very grateful to Jeff for that, and I can't wait to see the car. Anyway, I'm talking about Model Y, not the Model 3 Performance. I really like the new wheel design. So again, the 19-inch wheels are a black Aero design, and the 20-inch wheels look a whole lot, I won't quite call it identical without seeing them in person, but they look very, very, very similar to the sport wheels, the silver sport wheels that were on the old Model 3. Not the original version of them, like I had on my car, but the tweaked version of them that was introduced around 2020 that, in my opinion, didn't quite look as sharp. I think they went a little bit more Aero-friendly, but at the cost of a little bit of the sharpness of the design. But it was still, if you look at the wheel, you'll know what I'm talking about. They will look familiar if you see those 20-inch silver wheels on the new Model Y. And again, the new performance Model Y will come later, and when it does, it will no doubt have 21-inch wheels and almost certainly a new original wheel design, 21-inch wheel design to go with those. Okay. Wow, that was a lot. Now, what did all of you think of the new Model Y? At least your first impression, because again, this poll went up right after the new Model Y was revealed, so all of you in this Patreon poll and everything I just said for the last 45 minutes was all first impression. So this was a second Patreon poll for the week. I'd already had one up. The bonus second poll was, the new Y is revealed. What do you think? And the results, with a whole lot of votes. Thank you all for coming by later in the week and voting, in some cases for voting again for the second time in a week. 51% of you, so the majority of you, said, I love it. With just 3% of you saying, I hate it. 25% of you saying, it's okay. And I think if I could vote in my own poll, which I cannot, I would have voted it's okay. That's what I would have personally checked in this one. And then 19% of you said, I need to see it in person first, which I can completely respect. 2% of you said, I'm undecided as of yet. So overall, pretty positive. with some skepticism, and then a quarter of you saying, yeah, it's okay. So no outright dislike, really, but overall, probably a pretty good sample size for Tesla. We'll see again. Once we all see it in person, the story might change. And typically, when we see it in person, odds are we'll probably, if our opinions change, it'll be for the better and not for the worse. All right, before I get back to the rest of this week's Tesla news, I know everything kind of pales in comparison to the new Model Y. I do want to mention my friends at Accelerate Auto and their XCare extended warranty option for your Tesla. Doesn't matter if you bought the car from Tesla, doesn't matter if your factory warranty is expired, doesn't matter how many miles are on it really, because the XCare plan is super duper flexible. It offers everything Tesla's plan does, which means $100 deductibles and 24/7 roadside assistance, but XCare goes above and beyond the Tesla extended warranty, which, by the way, theirs is only 2 years and 25,000 miles, and that's it, take it or leave it. So the XCare plan will also provide trip interruption coverage and rental reimbursement, and beyond that, it's the flexibility. You could do 2 years and 25,000 more miles, if that's what you like. You could do like me, you could go 3 more years, 40,000 more miles. Or you could go all the way up to 10 years additionally and 125,000 more miles of warranty coverage, or anywhere in between. So that flexibility is really nice, and the folks at Accelerate Auto are kindly offering a $100 discount code for listeners of this podcast on your policy purchase. The discount code is LIGHTNING. So just type that in as your discount code if you go to purchase a policy. And the website to go to do that is accelerateauto.com/xcare. The link is in the description, but just to spell it out because it's a little weird, it's accelerateauto.com/XCARE. And again, that discount code for $100 off your policy purchase is LIGHTNING. Also, I want to mention the Patreon this week, and specifically the Lightning Round. So I do the bonus mini episode that I call the Lightning Round every week on Patreon for folks at the $10 tier or higher. And there's well over 100 of them, like 127 of those now. That, by the way, if you join the Patreon at that $10 per month tier or higher, you get instant access to all 127 of those. This week's topic, which I recorded last night, was my reactions to your reactions of the new Model Y. So I went through all of your comments that were on that poll, the poll results that I just gave you about what you think of the new Model Y. And I thought, again, there were some really great, astute, interesting comments from all of you on that. So just kind of talk through that, gave you my reactions to your reactions. So if you'd like to hear that and any of the other 126 lightning rounds, you can join the Patreon. You'd be supporting the podcast. I'd be so grateful if you decided to do that. I do deliver this podcast for free each and every Sunday. I have always done that. I will always continue to do that. And so the Patreon's totally optional, but if you'd like to support me, the Patreon is the place to go. And that website is patreon.com/Tesla podcast. No matter what tier you join the Patreon at, the tiers start at just $5 a month. All of them include early access to each week's episode, as well as ad-free episodes. And then if you jump up to that $10 per month tier, you get the ad-free, you get the early access, and you get all of those weekly lightning rounds as well. If you go up from there to the maximum plaid tier, you also get your name shouted out at the end of each episode, along with everything I just mentioned, and you get a monthly standing invitation to the monthly Patreon Zoom Hangouts, which I'm so glad that as it worked out, I didn't schedule it for the first Saturday of the month, which of course was last week. It is scheduled for, as I record tonight, tomorrow. So we're going to have, no doubt, a really, really fun conversation about the new Model Y and what everybody thinks of it. I hope that a lot of those folks eligible at the maximum plaid tier will join for that. So again, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can find all the information at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. Getting back to the rest of this week's Tesla news, and speaking of the Model Y, something of a follow-up from Tesla's statement last week about the Model Y being on track to be the best-selling car in the world for a second year in a row in 2024. Well, we have some regional evidence to that effect, and that is that Tesla continues to lead the charge in the UK, with the Model Y emerging as the best-selling car in December and the best-selling EV of 2024. I saw this story on Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, according to the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, or SMMT, the Tesla Model Y was the top-selling car in December, again in the UK, surpassing all other vehicles, electric or otherwise, with 5,165 units sold. The Model 3 followed closely behind with 3,477 units. Over the course of the year, the Model Y recorded 32,862 units sold, outpacing the Audi Q4 e-tron, which held the second position among EVs with 17,622 units sold, helping to push the UK EV market to a record 19.6% share. Quote, a record year for EV registrations underscores vehicle manufacturers' unswerving commitment to a decarbonized new car market with more choice, better range, and increased affordability than ever before. This has come at a huge cost, however, with the billions invested in new models being supplemented by generous incentives which are unsustainable, said Mike Hawes, chief executive of SMMT, in a statement that absolutely was written down. There's no way that a regular person actually said that to a reporter in conversation. But that's okay. That's how lots of quotes are. They're written down. You still said them. So, anyway, the Model Y almost doubled the number 2 EV on this list, the Q4 e-tron in the UK. But really, as Tesla themselves has said a million times over the years, the competition isn't other EVs, it's gas cars. Those are the customers that you want to get in order to grow the EV movement and continue progressing in the company's mission to advance the world's transition to sustainable energy. And so, with that in mind, let's look at the overall list for the UK, for UK vehicle sales in 2024. So, for the full year 2024, Model Y was the number 5 best-selling car, ahead of the Volkswagen Golf, Hyundai Tucson, MG HS, Volvo XC40, and Volkswagen Polo. It trailed, so it was behind the Ford Puma, which I, as an ignorant American, I had to look up because it's not sold here. And I learned that it's a compact crossover SUV, which means the Model 2.5 will probably be eating that vehicle's lunch in the next couple of years. Anyway, that was number 1. Number 2 in the UK was the Kia Sportage. The Nissan Qashqai at number 3. That's another, obviously, regional specific one we don't have in the US. Spelled Qashqai. It's a fun one. And the Nissan Juke at number 4. If you're wondering, by the way, the gap between the Puma at number 1 and the Y at number 5, it is a fairly significant gap, relatively speaking. The Puma outsold the Model Y by about 50%. So it was 48,000 and change for the Puma to 32,000 plus for the Model Y. And the Model 3, by the way, despite being number 2 in December, failed to crack the top 10 for the year in the UK, which I'm going to be honest with you, I find that a bit surprising. But maybe I shouldn't take it too personally, since when I took a closer look at the list of the top 10, there are 0 sedans on the list. The UK clearly isn't very into sedans, and that's okay. Every single car in the UK's top 10 for 2024 is a crossover of some kind, or in the case of the VW Polo and the Golf, a hot hatch. In fact, on top of that, every car in that top 10 except the Model Y is small. Like, the Model Y is not really small. It's a midsize. It's not the 2.5 that's coming up this year, that will be small. The Y is not really small. It's only small compared to the Model X. So, which the fact that the Y is the only not small car in the top 10 maybe makes it extra impressive that it cracked the top 5. The UK, they love smaller cars, just like we seem to favor larger cars here in America. And so, as I mentioned, as soon as Tesla starts pumping out right-hand drive Model 2.5 compact crossover SUVs, we will very likely see that zoom up this UK top 10 list. Next up this week, a recent study from Compare the Market has revealed that Tesla was the most searched car brand in the United States in 2024. I saw this story on Teslarati, who writes, in 2023, Tesla was the most searched car brand in 29 countries. In 2024, this number increased to 34 countries. Tesla was the number 1 most searched car brand in the United States, Canada, South Korea, a number of Scandinavian countries, as well as other parts of Europe and some parts of Africa. The number 1 most searched car brand globally is still Toyota. Toyota was the most searched car brand in 64 countries in 2023, and in 2024, it remained 64 countries. With 34 countries under its belt, Tesla was the second most searched car brand in the world in 2024. Adrian Taylor, Compare the Market's executive general manager of General Insurance, noted that while it is unsurprising to see Toyota at the top, other brands like Tesla are closing the gap. Quote, "It's not surprising to see Toyota still at the top multiple years running. Toyota is such a strong brand with a great reputation that they've maintained for years. However, it is interesting to see Tesla continue to be number 1 in specific countries and competing with brands that have long been strong in particular countries, like Ford in the USA and Volvo in Sweden. Many brands make gains in the ranking, many brands made gains in the ranking, while Toyota held steady. Perhaps one day Tesla might close the gap altogether," Taylor stated. So, what's the difference between Tesla and all of the other automakers on these most searched car brand lists? Yup, you guessed it. Tesla, for all intents and purposes, meaning outside of a brief targeted exception last year, Tesla doesn't advertise. And they still generate enough curiosity from the general public to be the most searched car brand in this country and 33 other countries as well. And depending on which side of the should Tesla advertise argument that you're on, I think you can make the case either way, right? You could look at this data and say, see, Tesla doesn't need to advertise. They're already generating a ton of organic interest. Or you could flip it and say, if they did advertise, they could be the number 1 most searched car brand in every country, dethroning Toyota, and thus sell even more cars. So I really do think you can look at that from either perspective, and you're not wrong, right? And so I was curious how all of you feel about the Tesla advertising situation. This has been a hot topic in the Tesla community on and off for a while now. And this was the first poll that I put up at the beginning of the week, what I intended to be the only Patreon poll this week before the new Model Y parachuted in on Thursday. And so the poll question, the other poll question this week was, should Tesla advertise? And 63% of you said yes. I think Tesla should invest more resources into advertising. 29% of you said no, I don't think Tesla should bother investing resources into advertising. And 8% voted no opinion / just show me the results. And again, a lot of really compelling and intelligent comments on this too. I'm not going to go through them because this is already such a long episode, but a common theme that I saw, which I'm completely agree with the commenters, is to educate, not so much to raise brand awareness, although yes, you're doing that too, but there's so much FUD out there. I talk about it on the podcast all the time. You've all probably experienced it in your lives in some way, whether again, it's a well-meaning friend or family member or coworker, or maybe even a not well-meaning family member or friend or coworker who has this ill-planted, malicious idea of Tesla in their head that they want to share with you because you're a Tesla person and you own one. And so, yeah, a lot of the comments were, it'd be great to see Tesla invest resources in advertising to combat that misinformation, combat that FUD. And I could not agree more with that sentiment. So thank you very much to all of you that took the time to vote in either or both Patreon polls this week. Again, the polls are open to the public. You do not need to be supporting me on Patreon. All you got to do is stop by the Patreon page, usually on Tuesday nights or after. That's usually when the polls go up. This week it was Tuesday night and Thursday night. But swing on by to vote each week at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Next this week, and I promise we are starting to wind down. I've got 2 more stories. This one and, yeah. Nope, 3 more. But the last 2 are pretty quick. So for this one, Tesla CEO Elon Musk was live streaming the video game Path of Exile 2 on X. And while he did so, he answered some questions in chat. So there are a couple of audio clips because he was just chatting away while he played the game on X. First up, here is a new feature coming for, according to Elon, every Tesla owner, with, I have to put 1 asterisk on here, and unfortunately just say in small print, except the original Roadster. So every X, every 3, every Y, every Cybertruck is about to get a new feature. Take a listen.
And yeah, all Teslas will be able to use Grok. Because the intelligence of Grok kind of lives in the cloud in the data center, so it doesn't matter what's in the car. It can just chat to Grok in the car.
So Grok, if you're not familiar with it, is the ChatGPT-like AI developed by xAI, which is one of Elon's other companies. Now, it remains to be seen specifically how Grok will be utilized in our cars, but presumably you'll be able to use your car's built-in microphone to ask it questions, and then it'll read you the answers back. I mean, it'd be pretty cool if it could actually go so far as to interface with the car, but I imagine that if something like that ever happens, it maybe would be a thing added sometime down the road. I'm talking about things like saying, navigate me home using only the back roads. If maybe like you want to do some canyon carving in your Model 3 Performance, or maybe you just want to avoid traffic, or maybe you're like my dad who now refuses to drive on the freeway ever because he thinks it takes longer on account of traffic backups that, of course, only occasionally occur and back things up on the freeway. But I digress. I love my dad, and if he feels safer not being on the freeway, that's okay. But anyway, at the very least, Grok will be there to answer any random questions that may pop into your head if you're driving by yourself, or maybe help settle debates that might come up during conversations with passengers, right? Where if you're like, oh, what about this? What happened with that thing? Or what movie was that? And you could ask Grok, and Grok will tell you. So I'm very glad that this will be something that's available on every Tesla going all the way back to the very first Model S's in 2012, and not something that's going to be locked to AI4 or MCU3 cars. So we don't have a timeline from Elon, but it sounds like that is something that is actively in the works right now. And then the other clip from Elon's Path of Exile 2 live stream session that I wanted to play for you. Remember how on either the last earnings call or shareholder letter maybe, it was mentioned that unsupervised FSD was planned to start fairly soon in Palo Alto, California, which is where Tesla's engineering headquarters is, with Tesla employees? Well, according to Elon right here, it sounds like that effort is already underway.
Tesla Full Self-Driving unsupervised. I think we mentioned we actually are doing trials of that for Tesla employees already, and we expect to have that in commercial service sometime this year, which I mentioned at the last earnings call.
This is awesome progress to hear about. I wonder what version they're running internally for this. I mean, it's probably not the same production 13.2 build that the AI4 fleet is on right now. I mean, it's almost certainly something farther ahead, but who knows? I mean, I keep hearing amazing things about 13.2, and I can't wait to try it when I get my new car back from Immaculate Reflections. But anyway, what hearing this makes me want to do is it makes me want to drive down to Palo Alto. It's only about half an hour south of here, and just hang out, not in a creepy way, near Tesla's engineering headquarters and see if I can spot any Teslas driving around with no one in the driver's seat. I mean, surely some YouTuber out there, some Tesla YouTuber, Tesla influencer, is gonna go do that, and then if they spot one, follow the car and film it. I mean, I'll be surprised if that has not happened in time for next week's podcast. But seriously though, this is fantastic progress. It has been a long road to get here. In fact, I was just talking last weekend to longtime Ride the Lightning listener and Patreon backer Jerome Strack. We met up for an In-N-Out burger. He was in town, and he brought up something that I hadn't thought about in a while, and that is, it's now been over 3 years that I've been in the FSD beta. And officially, the public beta started 4 years ago with a really, really small group of external testers before that. So it started opening up a bit wider 3+ years ago already, and the beta's officially been going. I mean, it's not technically beta anymore, I know, but it officially started a little over 4 years ago. So the point is, we have seen progress along the way, certainly in that time, but at least to me, it really feels like the momentum's starting to build now. If you have FSD, I think you'd probably agree with that, at least to some degree. It's exciting to think about where we might be in 1 year from now. I mean, might your Tesla drive you around unsupervised in a year from now? Elon says yes, that'll start happening this year, but even accounting for Elon's optimistic timelines, your car driving you around in FSD unsupervised now seems a lot more like a when than an if, whereas for a long time it was still very much in the if category, at least to me. I mean, I don't want to begrudge anybody that's been all in, total believer this whole time, but it's really starting to become apparent that Tesla is breaking through here. And you know, this is part of the fun of doing this podcast, by the way, is chronicling the growth and evolution of Tesla and all of its various efforts in real time, right? Like, if nothing else, I know I maybe overzealously called myself a Tesla historian earlier, But at the very least, maybe you'd agree that this podcast is kind of a living time capsule of Tesla at any given moment over the past 9+ years. So hopefully my podcast will be historically useful for that someday, if nothing else. All right, 2 other quick little things I want to mention before I wrap up with the news. A quick mini milestone to celebrate, courtesy of the aforementioned Tesla China, who posted to X this week to say, 5 years ago today, again earlier in the week, 5 years ago today, the first Model 3 cars produced at Giga Shanghai were delivered to our customers. Since then, Giga Shanghai has produced over 3 million vehicles, about 1/3 of which have been exported to markets worldwide, earning widespread acclaim. Thanks to our owners, partners, and supporters, let's accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Well, 3 million cars in 5 years for an average of basically 600,000 cars a year. That's pretty remarkable considering that they started from zero. I mean, for context, the Fremont factory just hit 3 million a bit under a year ago. I had to double check. A bit under a year ago, and they started in 2012. Now, I know it's not an apples to apples comparison because Giga Shanghai only builds the high volume Teslas, and the Fremont factory built lower volume cars, S and X, exclusively for a number of years before the 3 came in and then the Y came in. But still, I think that gives you a little bit of context for how impressive the Giga Shanghai average of 600,000 cars a year really is. And by the way, that annual average of 600,000 cars a year for Shanghai should only go up as time goes on, because more years at the higher sustained rate, plus the Model 2.5s that are coming. So it's only going to go up. And if you've been following Tesla for at least these last 5 years since Giga Shanghai got started, you know that they were very quick to not only go from dirt to a factory pumping out cars, but also very quickly became Tesla's highest output car factory, and they've never looked back. They produce many more cars than Fremont does, many more cars than Texas does, many more cars than Berlin does. It is a very, very impressive factory that Tesla's got going on over there. Finally this week, and I just want to end on a happy community note and thank all of you collectively. This is a follow-up. I want to thank the number of listeners. This was quite a number of folks who either wrote in or called in, who reached out to me to assist last week's Ride the Lightning hotline caller, Kenny from Virginia, with his Bluetooth connectivity issue with his phone. So Kenny, as several people pointed out, there's 2 things that it might be. This is the first one to try. If you go to your phone's entry in the Tesla Bluetooth menu in your car, ensure that priority device is selected. The button will have a blue background when it's selected. So that should hopefully do the trick. But if that doesn't fix it, have your brother, who you said didn't have this issue, connect his phone to your car. And if his phone works and yours doesn't, then it might be an issue with your phone. But if your brother's phone also has the same issue with your car, then it might be an issue with one of 2 things. Either your car's Bluetooth module, or another suggestion that a few different people sent my way because this happened to them is that it could be that your driver's seat occupancy sensor was defective and needed to be replaced. That might be the problem as well. So one of those solutions will hopefully take care of it for you. Try out your brother's phone, and that should help narrow it down. Good luck, Kenny. And seriously, thank you all in the Tesla community, the Ride the Lightning listeners, for reaching out and being willing to help out a fellow Tesla owner. That's what this is all about, right? We're here to help each other out, to share in this enthusiasm of these cars that we love, of this company that we love. So it's great to see, and it just warms my heart when I got such a strong response from the audience after airing Kenny's call. Now, speaking of Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls, this podcast is already very, very, very long, but that's okay. Again, it's been a special episode with the new Model Y. So I'm not going to play any of your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls this week, but I promise I will next week, because no doubt I'm going to get some phone calls from you guys with your feedback, your responses to what you think of the new Model Y. So if you want to call in and tell me what you think of the new Model Y, are you buying it? Were you gonna buy it? Now you've seen it and you don't want it, or were you not gonna buy it, but now that you've seen it, you do want it? Maybe because it's got a stalk or whatever the case. If you've got feedback on the new Y, I would love to hear from you. And you can call in to the Ride the Lightning hotline in one of two easy ways. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software. When you record your question, please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many callers each week as possible. And then email that file to me at my Tesla Podcast email address, which is simply teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or you can take that same 90-second or less call and just call in and leave a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free number. You can dial at any time, and the number is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. And again, I will very much look forward to your phone calls for next week's podcast.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
All right, as for what's going on with me and my new car, the Soul of Adventure, it is so close to being ready at Immaculate Reflections. So there's an issue with the windshield protection film, and yes, you heard that correctly. This is something, I'm trying it out for the first time. I've never had it, but this is a newer film technology that's come a long way, and it doesn't guard against, it's not gonna keep your windshield from getting cracked, but the hope is that it helps keeps the clarity super perfect, so that any those little chips that you'll inevitably get over the months, over the years, and then the sun reflects on you, you can see. So the idea is to try and help get rid of those. So just waiting on that issue to be sorted out with that film. But Immaculate Reflections, Jeff has been sending me pictures of my car. It's like 98% of the way there. It is looking awesome. Can't wait to get the car back. So that is the update there. But more importantly, it is time for your Tesla Pro Tip of the Week. It comes this week from Dave in Yorktown, Virginia. And speaking of windshields, it's a pro tip regarding the windshield wipers. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello, Ryan. This is Dave from Yorktown, Virginia. I think I have a minor pro tip for you here. It involves the windshield wipers. I think this probably occurs to a lot of people in various different ways, but having the windshield wipers on super fast warp speed mode when it's not really raining that hard outside, it might be just like kind of drizzling, and you've got the wipers just going back and forth. I think it's a little annoying. Obviously, one of the ways to prevent that is just go into manual mode, but the thing I don't like about doing that is that if it starts raining harder, then you kind of have to come out of manual mode, go and get into auto mode so the windshield wipers will move quicker. So a little workaround I found for myself was when the windshield wipers are moving really fast and they don't need to, just use the windshield washer. Press that button at the end of the stalk all the way in, the washer will activate, and the wipers will slow down to washer speed. And they'll usually stay that way, at least for me. They'll stay that way. It might be drizzling outside, and then they'll stay going slow as opposed to super fast for a minute, a couple of minutes, several minutes, depending. And then if they start going super fast again and I don't like it, then I just wash the windshield again. So kind of an interesting thing. Not sure if this particular Teslas, maybe other cars that have automatic sensing for windshield wipers this would apply to. I kind of think the reason this happens is because if you don't have the best wipers in town, you're streaking the camera. And so the car thinks it has to put the windshield wipers on high speed to keep the camera clear, but it really doesn't. And using, again, the windshield washer works for me for that. So have a great one. Enjoy the podcast. Take care. Bye.
Hi, Dave. This absolutely counts as a pro tip. This is a great hack of sorts here. Thank you so much for calling in with this. I do appreciate it. And if anybody else out there has a good Tesla pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, please send it my way. And the way to do that is using either of the two call-in methods that I told you about just a few minutes ago. Okay, before I hit the road in what has been a unexpectedly long episode, I didn't think I would go on for quite that long about the new Model Y, but I'm not sorry. I had a lot to say, as I'm sure you do too, as you sort of take in everything about this long-awaited redesign that Reuters first reported, over a year ago, right? Roughly, maybe about a year ago. Like they definitely get the credit. They broke that story quite some time ago, but it's here. Now we're just waiting for it to be here in North America. So fingers crossed, and Europe as well. Fingers crossed that happens soon. But friends of the podcast, in the meantime, that can perhaps be of use to you, maybe you're going to be planning to buy the new Model Y. So if you are, you should stop by abstractocean.com. They have hundreds upon hundreds of fantastic aftermarket Tesla accessories, from lighting to sort of decorative stuff to more fun. Like it's really spans the full spectrum of cool accessories, fun stuff you can get for your car. Just go take a look. abstractocean.com. The 4th generation tempered glass screen protector is a great one. There's a lot. Take a look, and when you get to checkout, after you pile in everything you want in your online shopping cart, use the coupon code RTL Podcast for 15% off of your first order. That's RTL Podcast, all one word, no spaces in that coupon code. If you need a front license plate bracket for the SX3, or Cybertruck, and you don't want to use the one that Tesla gave you because the one that Tesla gave you sticks to the front of your car with automotive tape, and if that makes your skin crawl like it does mine, the snap plate will take really, really good care of you, because it is a front license plate bracket that can snap on and off in seconds, but when it's on there securely. It is a nice minimalist design, which I love with something like this. So you want to make those fix-it tickets go away for when you have to, either be parked at a parking meter or be going through a toll bridge or something like that, where you need that front license plate. Grab yours at everyamp.com/RTL. And whether you choose the regular snap plate that's safety optimized with breakaway features to sacrifice itself in a worst case scenario like a parking accident or a car wash, or you choose the Snap Plate Plus, which is strength optimized with hardened features for maximum strength, make sure you use the coupon code RTL. So again, the website, everyamp.com/RTL. This is linked in the episode description as well. everyamp.com/RTL, coupon code RTL. And as I mentioned, Immaculate Reflections, finishing up my car. If you'd like them to do some professional detailing work on your car, whether that means paint correction, paint protection film on some or all of the car, and or ceramic coating on your car, if you're in or going to be in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, I cannot recommend Immaculate Reflections enough. And better yet, they offer a Ride the Lightning listener discount. So go to the website, which is irdetailing.com, and use the contact form there. And when you do, just mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and any work that you end up booking with Immaculate Reflections will have the Ride the Lightning listener discount applied. Finally, my Patreon, I mentioned it earlier, so just real quick. As I said, it is the way that you can voluntarily choose to support what I'm doing here with Ride the Lightning every single week. The website is patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. All the support tiers are there. All the information's there. There are also annual pledges. So if you're like, I don't really want to do a monthly thing with you, but sure, I'd love to support you just paying once for a year of support. Well, you can do that on patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. And not only that, if you do choose to do the 1 year of support, you will get a 10% discount on that annual pledge as a thank you from me. Finally, the referral program is back. It's the amounts have stepped down as we enter a new quarter and a new year. But if you are buying a new Tesla, make sure you're using somebody's referral code. And if you'd like to use mine, the thing to do is type it into a web browser on any device, mobile or desktop. So go to on any web browser, type in ts.la/Ryan73014 and configure whichever car you want from there, and it will bake in the $500 discount if you're buying a Model 3 or a Model Y, or it will bake in the $1,000 discount if you're buying an S, X, or Cybertruck. Just a friendly reminder that to get the referral, to get the discount, you have to order with a referral link. Tesla will not retroactively apply them. And just a quick note too, whether you use my referral link or not, if you're considering buying a Tesla and you want to bounce some questions or some ideas off of me about which Tesla or maybe which variant of a specific Tesla might be the best fit for you and your family, feel free to hit me up anytime. I'm always happy to help. You guys know I love talking about this stuff. You can email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com, or you can message me on X or direct message me on Instagram as well. My username on both X and Instagram, it's the same username. It's DMC_Ryan. If you're not already following this podcast on your favorite podcast service, I recommend doing that. It's free. All it does is it means that whenever there's a new episode, you'll get a push notification reminding you and letting you know that a new episode is out. So I'm on all the big podcast services, whether that's Apple Podcasts or TuneIn or Spotify or YouTube Podcasts. On any of those, just search Ride the Lightning Tesla Podcast. You should find me pretty quickly, and you can click that follow button. Finally, before I go, a hello and thank you to these top-tier Patreon backers, these extra generous folks who really do a lot out of the goodness of their hearts to help keep this podcast going every week. I will start with the Roadster in Space tier backers. I hope to see a lot of these folks at the monthly Zoom hangout tomorrow, because again, the Model Y, new Model Y, it's going to be a great conversation. It always is, but this week, this time, I should say this month, it's going to be an especially fun conversation because we have this hot as it gets, ultra fresh, huge topic to all discuss together. So thank you to the Roadster in Space tier backers, Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Kara Weston, Robert from near Philly, American Home Contractors, GetAmber.com, Doug Carey, Rav, and Michael Gallo. Next up, A big thanks and a hello goes out to the Maximum Plaid backers, who I hope a number of them will be at tomorrow's monthly Patreon Zoom hangout. Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Adam Lavoie, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Dustin Hart, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Adam Christie, Damon Klein, Jeff Brown, Jerry Slinger, Clayton Goodfellow, Michael Mizrahi, Kenneth Corbett, and Brian Bertoglio. And finally, a big thank you and hello goes out to the grandfathered-in Plaid level supporters, very kind and generous folks who continue to back me at this now phased-out tier, but in return, they get all the perks and bonuses that they should get for that tier, which are plentiful, including the invite to that monthly Zoom hangout. So thank you to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk in quotes, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. And that, my friends, will do it for a particularly long episode, but again, special episode. We had a big mega topic to discuss here on just the second episode of 2025. I love it. This is why I love this I mean, it's weeks like this, right? Like, I do the podcast 52 weeks a year. Not every week can have a megaton announcement like the new Model Y this week, but that means when these megatons come around, it's so much fun, and I embrace it, right? It's like this was a fun week. It was a frantic end of the week to get the podcast put together and all my notes and get a lightning round out and all that, but it feels good. Now I'm at the end. I just have to finish editing and putting it all together, and then publish it and get it up there on Patreon for the early access folks. Everybody on Patreon gets it early. So just these last final few steps, but feels good to have it in the bank, all recorded. I had fun with this one. I hope you did too. And I'm so grateful for your time, for your attention. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. Whether you're backing me on Patreon or just listening every week, you are being supportive. And I thank you so much. So happy electric motoring, my friends. And I'll see you back here next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.